How the Titanic Sank. On the night of April 14th, 1912, the RMS Titanic, a marvel of modern engineering and luxury, sailed through the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. Heralded as unsinkable, the ship carried over 2,200 passengers and crew, each with their own hopes, dreams, and destinations. Yet, within a few short hours, this grand vessel would be resting on the ocean floor, leaving a legacy of tragedy and mystery that has captivated the world for over a century. As we explore these critical moments, we remember that behind every statistic, every account, were real people whose lives were forever changed that fateful night. Now, let's begin the countdown to disaster. The night was calm, the ocean still. Passengers slept soundly in their cabins, unaware that their fate had just changed. Up in the crow's nest, the lookout suddenly spotted a massive shape, an iceberg, dead ahead. They rang the warning bell and called down to the bridge. First Officer Murdoch reacted instantly, ordering the ship to turn and engines to reverse, but it was too late. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side, sending a deep vibration through the ship. Some passengers barely noticed. Others, closer to the impact, felt the shudder and heard the eerie sound of metal twisting. Below deck, water was already rushing in. 5 compartments had been breached, too many for the Titanic to stay afloat. Captain Smith rushed from his cabin to assess the damage. He called for Thomas Andrews, the ship's designer, to examine the situation. The news was grim. The Titanic was taking on water fast. She had no chance of making it to morning. The order was given. Lifeboats would be prepared. In third class, passengers were beginning to wake. Many had no idea what was happening. In first class, some had already been alerted. Crew members knocked on doors, advising people to dress warmly and head to the boat deck. Few felt a true sense of urgency. After all, the Titanic was unsinkable, wasn't she? The ship had begun tilting forward ever so slightly, but few noticed. The band in the first-class lounge continued playing, easing the mood. Some passengers gathered on the deck, wrapped in blankets, waiting for instructions. In the boiler rooms, engineers fought to keep power running. Water was rising quickly in the lower decks, but the lights stayed on thanks to their efforts. Every minute they bought meant more time for rescue. Captain Smith ordered the wireless operators to send a distress call. Come quickly, they tapped out to nearby ships. But most were too far away. The closest hope, the Carpathia, was 4 hours away. The first lifeboat was ready, but only a few people stepped forward. Many believed the ship was safer than a tiny lifeboat on the freezing ocean. Some refused to leave without their loved ones. Others hesitated, still unaware of the true danger. The Titanic's bow was sinking lower. Below deck, third-class passengers struggled to find their way to safety. Water was creeping up the corridors, filling rooms and swallowing everything in its path. More lifeboats began lowering, but many were still half-filled. The crew encouraged women and children to board, yet some hesitated, reluctant to leave loved ones behind. On the boat deck, the chill cut through layers of clothing. The atmosphere was changing. Worry was becoming fear. Below deck, third-class passengers encountered locked gates and blocked passages. Some managed to reach the upper decks, while others found themselves trapped. Panic began to spread among those still deep within the ship, with freezing water at their feet. The bow had dipped noticeably now. On the upper decks, passengers could feel the slope beneath their feet. Officers began filling lifeboats more urgently. Some men, realizing the severity, tried to slip into the boats, leading to tense moments. The band continued to play, a gesture of calm amid the chaos. Their music floated eerily over the scene, a haunting soundtrack to the tragedy unfolding. Survivors would later recall their bravery, playing until the very end. Most of the lifeboats were gone. People left on deck faced an impossible decision: jump into the icy water or stay aboard a sinking ship. The angle of the Titanic was now severe, her stern rising as the bow plunged deeper. Passengers clung to railings, desperate for balance. Those still below deck faced a different horror: water rushing in, swallowing stairwells and flooding passageways. The lights flickered but held on, illuminating the terror of those struggling to escape. With the last lifeboat gone, over 1,000 people remained on board. The deck was now a chaotic, slanted surface. The ship's lights, a final symbol of hope, began to flicker. The sound of objects crashing and metal straining filled the air. The stern, lifted high, trembled under its own weight. With a roar, the Titanic's hull broke between the third and fourth funnels. The bow disappeared beneath the waves, pulling the stern momentarily upright. For a moment, there was a pause, a stillness. Then, the stern began its final plunge. The Titanic was gone. The once majestic ship lay in pieces on the ocean floor. The freezing waters were dotted with survivors clinging to debris, calling out for help. The Carpathia would not arrive for hours. In that dark, icy silence, the true scale of the tragedy settled in. Over 1,500 lives were lost in those few hours. The world would grapple with the tragedy for years, haunted by the stories of loss, heroism, and the lessons learned too late. The Titanic's sinking marked the end of an era of unwavering confidence, leaving behind a story that still resonates today.